Welcome back. It's time for the roundtable. And this week there were plenty of stories getting attention on Wall Street, from tensions overseas to a surprise relaxation in tensions here in Washington. Not for long, but just long enough for two leaders who never agree on anything to get an agreement impacting spending, but just a small one. So here to break down the news of the week and what it could mean for your wallet, one of our favorite reporters from the Washington Post, Stephen Overly, and a new guest to the show, but a well-known presence here and nationwide, former Governor of Virginia, Jim Gilmore. Welcome to you both. Governor, a real honor to have you on. You've been quite busy since your years running the Commonwealth. You ran the entire Republican Party for the country during some very busy years. Now you're thinking deep thoughts. Catch us up on what you're doing.
Well, I'm President and CEO of the Free Congress Foundation, and I have that oriented to the critical issues facing the United States today. And I'm focused mostly on the need to grow the economy and get more jobs and wages up, and the national security issues and crises facing the United States.
Free Congress, a well-respected, well-known institution that has a lot of impact on policy. So we're glad to have you here. So let's talk about the news of the week. Stephen Overly, the Wall Street investors were looking, they didn't know where to look. One minute it's interest rates that has them nervous. The next minute it's Yemen that has them nervous. Your take on the week and all the different ways that investors could be nervous.
Sure. Well, it was sort of a where to look kind of week, right? I mean, if you look internationally, we obviously had situations kind of all around the world, including Yemen, as you mentioned, and domestically here, you know, in Congress was a big week in terms of determining the budget and setting that whole agenda. So I think Wall Street probably was a little schizophrenic in trying to figure out exactly what to watch.
Governor, your take from first the vantage point of interest rates. Where should the Fed be right now in terms of a soft landing or reining in more quickly their activism and trying to spur on the economy?
Well, I think they're probably going to gradually increase interest rates, which will have an impact on your viewers as time goes on. But I just think this is the wrong approach. I think we're relying too much on the Fed and trying to bump rates up and down. We saw rates go all the way to the floor, and it really has not helped the economy to grow. Instead, what we really have to have is a forward-looking, aggressive policy with tax reform in order to grow this economy, increase more capital spending, get more people employed, and higher wages. And everything we're doing, Rebecca, in the Congress right now is against that, is anti that.
Governor, I'm old school. I used to work in the Senate back in the days of Bob Dole and Sam Nunn and my boss, David Boren, where things got done. You were a governor who got things done. People thought you couldn't lower taxes the way that you did, but you pushed it through. Take your example of lowering taxes when people said it couldn't be done. Is there a model for Congress to follow? Because they're not getting it done.
Well, there certainly is. And as you point out, I cut the car tax in Virginia, and I promised I would do it, and I did it.
But everyone said you wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, but it helped people. It helped regular people, still helps regular people. Now we have to take that into the Congress, and we have to really do a tax reform that will get spur investment going in this country. And, you know, people just don't understand that. They think that, well, it's all about the rich. And the truth is that what we really want to do is harness wealth in this country, get it reinvested back into this country, and get more people employed and get job growth up and wages up. And that's not going on in the Congress.
But there are members of Congress who believe that. Is there any hope on the horizon that we'll start to see some activity in terms of actually legislating?
We have to win the real battle out here in shows just like this and explain to your constituents and people that are watching you right now that there is a path forward to increase opportunity in this country. We're just not doing it in the Congress.
Stephen, good news for the taxpayers this week was bad news for one local company that you've been following and reporting on. Newstar got a big blow from the federal government. They lost a major contract. We don't have a lot of time. What happened to them?
Sure. So Newstar lost a big Federal Communications Commission contract for number portability, which basically allows you or I to keep our phone number if we decide to change mobile phone carriers. This makes up about 50% of the company's revenue. And after a long, drawn-out battle, the FCC just awarded that contract to a competitor.
Governor, they awarded it to a competitor in Sweden, but the competitor offered it at $500 million. Newstar offered it at $1 billion. Do we hurt a local homegrown company and help an overseas company if it's going to save the taxpayer money?
You bet that we do. And here's why we're forced into that kind of problem. Because we have to have a tax reform that reduces corporate taxes to 15% in this country, and then our local companies can compete internationally. Today we're in a position where it's hard for them to do that.
Time for the pop quiz, and with such a good panel, I'm just going to ask, Governor, the biggest story you're watching right now?
Biggest story I'm watching is the instability in Russia, that we're seeing, the injection of instability into Europe, and also, of course, the daily stories we see about war and conflict in the Middle East every day.
Stephen, plenty for investors to be nervous about. What are you keeping your eye on?
I think we're going to see what happens in Congress when they return from their spring recess. You know, we ended with this bipartisan bill and the doc fix. What can get done before we're, knocking on the door of an election year and folks are looking to 2016?
Lots to keep an eye on. Thank you both for joining us on Washington Business Report.